rain fell softly against the windows of the small neighborhood cafe as Daniel Carter wiped down the last table of the evening. At 38 years old, he had learned to live with exhaustion. Raising his 7-year-old daughter Lily alone while running a modest cafe was never easy. 3 years earlier, his wife had passed away after a long illness. Since then, every day had been a struggle to keep his business alive and provide a decent life for his daughter. As Daniel locked the front door, Lily ran from the back room carrying her school notebook. "Daddy, look, I got an A in math." Daniel smiled despite his tiredness. "That's wonderful, sweetheart." Lily threw her arms around him. "You promised ice cream if I got an A." Daniel laughed. "I remember." Just then, a sleek black car stopped outside the cafe. It was unusual. Expensive cars never came to this part of town. A woman stepped out. She appeared to be in her early 30s, dressed in an elegant gray business suit. Her confident posture and calm expression immediately caught Daniel's attention. She walked toward the door. Daniel unlocked it again. "Sorry, we're closed." The woman smiled politely. "I won't take much of your time." Something about her voice felt strangely familiar. "My name is Victoria Bennett." Daniel nodded. "How can I help you?" Victoria looked around the cafe. Her eyes seemed emotional, as if she had returned to a place she hadn't seen in years. Then she said something completely unexpected. "My father has died." Daniel remained silent. "But I came to pay his debt." For a moment, neither Daniel nor Lily understood what she meant. "A debt?" Daniel asked. Victoria slowly nodded. 20 years ago, my father owed you more than money." Daniel frowned. "I think you have the wrong person." "I don't." She opened her purse and carefully removed an old photograph. The moment Daniel saw it, memories flooded back. The photo showed 2 teenage boys standing beside a broken bicycle. One of them was Daniel, the other was Michael Bennett, Victoria's father. Daniel stared at the photograph in shock. "Michael," Victoria smiled softly. "You remember him. How could I forget?" 20 years earlier, Daniel and Michael had been best friends. They grew up together in a poor neighborhood. Neither had much, yet they shared everything. When they were 18, Michael dreamed of becoming an entrepreneur, but his family was struggling financially. He needed money to attend a business training program in another state. Without hesitation, Daniel gave him every dollar he had saved, nearly $5,000. At the time, it was a fortune. Michael promised to repay him. But shortly afterward, Michael moved away. Life happened. They lost contact. Years passed. Daniel eventually assumed he would never see his friend again. Victoria sat down at a table. "My father never forgot what you did." Daniel looked surprised. "He never contacted me." Victoria lowered her eyes. "That's because he was ashamed." Daniel listened quietly. "My father built a successful company," she continued. "He became wealthy, very wealthy." Daniel raised an eyebrow. "Then why didn't he repay the loan?" Victoria sighed. "He wanted to, many times." "What stopped him?" "Pride." Daniel looked confused. Victoria continued. "He always planned to come back after achieving something truly remarkable. He wanted you to see that your sacrifice had changed his life." A sad smile appeared on her face. But the years kept passing. Daniel remained silent. Then he became ill. The cafe suddenly felt very quiet. "Cancer." Daniel's expression softened. Victoria nodded. The doctors gave him little time. She reached into her purse again and removed a worn leather journal. This belonged to him. She placed it on the table. "Before he died, he asked me to find you." Daniel carefully opened the journal. Inside were hundreds of handwritten entries. Many mentioned him. One page read, "Daniel believed in me when nobody else did. Everything I built began with his kindness." Another page said, "One day I will repay him. Not because he expects it, but because honor demands it." Daniel swallowed hard. He hadn't expected this. Victoria continued speaking. "My father carried guilt for 20 years. Tears formed in her eyes. His greatest regret was never thanking you." Daniel looked at the journal again. For a long moment, nobody spoke. Finally, he closed it. "You don't owe me anything." Victoria smiled gently. "Yes, I do." She reached for a folder she had brought with her. Inside were several documents. My father left specific instructions. Daniel glanced at them. What is this? A transfer agreement. A transfer of what? Victoria slid the papers toward him. 10% of Bennett Holdings. Daniel almost laughed. The number printed on the page was unbelievable. Bennett Holdings was worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Victoria, this must be some mistake. It isn't. I loaned your father $5,000. You gave him hope, Victoria replied. That's worth far more. Daniel shook his head. I can't accept this. Victoria expected the response. My father knew you would say that, she smiled, which is why he wrote a letter. She handed him an envelope. With trembling hands, Daniel opened it. The letter began, My dear friend, if you are reading this, then I am gone. I failed to repay you during my lifetime, and for that I am deeply sorry. You gave me money when you barely had enough for yourself, but more importantly, you gave me faith. Every success I achieved began with your sacrifice. Please accept this gift, not as charity, but as a debt finally repaid. Your friend always, Michael. Daniel lowered the letter. His eyes were wet. Lily quietly squeezed his hand. Daddy, he smiled at her. I'm okay. Victoria looked around the cafe. My father often talked about this place. Daniel frowned. He never visited. No, Victoria said softly, but he followed your life from a distance. Daniel looked surprised. What? He knew about your wife? Daniel's eyes widened. He knew when she passed away. Victoria paused. He wanted to help. Why didn't he? Because he feared you would refuse. Daniel laughed sadly. He was probably right. For the first time, both of them smiled. The tension disappeared. They were no longer strangers connected by a debt. They were family friends connected by kindness. Victoria stood and walked toward Lily. You must be Lily. Lily nodded shyly. Victoria knelt beside her. Your father is a very special man. Lily smiled. I know. Victoria laughed softly. That's good. As she stood again, Daniel looked at her. You know, your father was stubborn. Victoria grinned. Trust me, I know. And proud. Definitely. Just like his daughter. They both laughed. Outside, the rain had finally stopped. The clouds were beginning to clear. Victoria extended her hand. Thank you, Daniel. He shook it. For what? For changing my father's life. Daniel looked toward the old photograph still lying on the table. Then he smiled. Your father changed mine too. That night after Victoria left, Daniel sat alone in the cafe reading Michael's journal. Page after page told the story of a man who had never forgotten a simple act of kindness. And Daniel realized something important. The $5,000 he had given away 20 years earlier had earned no interest at any bank, but kindness had quietly multiplied it beyond imagination, not into wealth, not into business success, but into gratitude, friendship, and a legacy that survived even death. Sometimes the greatest debts are not measured in money. They are measured in the lives we change when we choose to help someone who needs us, and those debts, unlike money, are remembered forever.